Good morning. Welcome to Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tewarie, and we're so happy that you are on. You are watching on MCTV, Multicultural TV, and listening on U 97.5 FM Hot Like Pepper Radio. We're very glad to have you this morning. My first guest is the Chief Executive Officer of AMCHAM, Mr. Nirad Tewarie. And my guest in the second hour is His Grace, the Archbishop of Trinidad and Tobago. And we will have a good conversation today on economic matters and on other matters trending to the spiritual and religious side with His Grace, the Archbishop. As you know, the budget is coming up on October 4th, and we are talking to a number of people here. We had the Chief Executive Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce recently. We had Gregory Aboud yesterday from the Port of Spain Chamber, basically DOMA, Downtown Merchants Association. And today we have Nirad Tewarie representing AMCHAM. I'll just mention two items that are raging in the news. One is the Delta variant is with us, very much with us, and you can bet your bottom dollar that invisibly it is moving from person to person in the population because it is here among us in the community. And I ask you please to be very careful wherever you go, even if you are vaccinated. If you go in places where there are numbers of people, if you go in places where you are indoors, I am not a medical doctor and I'm not giving you medical advice, but I have common sense. And I am advising you, wear your mask, make sure your hands, etc., are sanitized, and keep your distance, even if you are vaccinated, because the variant is here and it operates with deadly force. The second issue that I want to raise is that, as you know, we had the Minister of National Security here yesterday, and we talked about a number of issues. He was exclusive to this program and this station, and he raised a number of issues. But the matter is now in court. Mr. Griffith, whose legal team is led by Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, got a hearing today, and we will follow that and see what happens. And basically, he is seeking to test in court the power of the Police Service Commission to keep him away from his job. The Minister of National Security, Mr. Hines, though, indicated that he had a contract which ended on August 17th. So we'll see how the law deals with this matter. So it is 6:20 now, and we have Nirad Tewarie on the line. So we will ask him to come on, and we will talk with him. Morning, Nirad.
Hi, good morning, and good morning to everyone in Master Control and to all your viewers, of course, and listeners on the radio.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, Nirad, as you know, we are approaching the budget, and I was very struck by the fact that AMCHAM sent a proposal to the government, which was quite detailed. And I was very struck by the fact that many of the things that you proposed had very little to do with what I might call selfish or self-interested business interests, although you had some of those self-interested business issues, because a lot of it was about the economy and trying to make sure that business does well. But you had a lot of things in there that really serves, I think, the national good. And I wanted to explore some of those things with you. And the first thing I want to start with is the digitalization issue, which you emphasize. The government has established a Ministry of Digitalization and Digital Transformation. And we have a minister. I had a conversation with him some time ago. Why is the emphasis on that so important to AMCHAM?
Yeah. So thanks for that question and for the observation. We at AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago exist and put forward recommendations based on the philosophy that if the country thrives and if there are opportunities and there's an opportunity for merit to prevail, business will do well. And that's why our recommendations, our commentary tends to be in that frame. In terms of digital transformation, first of all, the creation of the ministry really signals, from our point of view, the government's intent to focus on digital transformation and to elevate the importance of digital transformation across the government as opposed to leaving it as discrete projects in ministries or in state enterprises. That's a good thing. Why we think digital transformation is so important is because if we are able to implement digital solutions and digital processes in the way that we do things, particularly given that the state is so involved in every aspect of the economy as the largest employer, given the amount of services, the amount of times we need to interact with the state in the normal course of doing our business, living our lives, if we can implement digital solutions that make processes more fast.
What's happening there? Nirad, I think we just lost you. Is it on his side or our side? All right, we're trying to get you back now. We're talking about digitalization and the Ministry of Digitalization and what that would mean for commerce, but also services to the ordinary people. Can we get him on? Should we break, or is he? Nirad, you back on? Could you check with him? I'm going to break now. Could we try and fix this, please? All right. I'm going to take a commercial break, a short one, and let's fix this, please.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
It's not just a sale. It's It's a craving for savings celebration happening now at all 8 locations of Passada Food King Supermarket, ensuring that you budget like a boss and eat like a king in these tough times. We're committed to caring and treating for you like family by ensuring that you get the best quality product at the most affordable, discounted prices. And at Passada Food King, your safety continues to be our #1 priority. So remember, when visiting our locations, wear your mask at all times, properly sanitize, always wash your hands, as well as practice proper social distancing and follow all safety guidelines as advised by the authorities. You have simply got to check out these great deals and savings available now at all Passada Food King locations: Manzanilla Road, Mayaro, Tabakit Road, Rio Claro, New Grant, 2 stores in Princestown, 2 stores in Point Fortin, and Premier Street, Marabella, at the back of the Marabella Market.
Your house is more than just a home. It's the new normal. It's your place of work, your kids' school, and even your gym. It's where you and your family spend most of your time. With over 43 years in the building service industry, let Magic Mist Services Limited take care of your home cleaning and maintenance needs. From ceiling to floor, interior and exterior, allowing you to focus on what matters most to you. Give us a call. Magic Mist Services Limited, your total facilities management solutions provider.
Welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo. I'm Bo Tewarie, and I'm speaking with Nirad Tewarie, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Chamber of Commerce. All right, Nirad, we had a little problem with the internet on your side, so be alert to that. You were talking about the importance of digitalization and what it will do, what it will impact, and why AMCHAM is supporting this so much. Want to conclude that point?
Yeah, sure. My apologies for that. Basically, we tend to talk about the government, we tend to talk about budget, we tend to talk about policy as though it is a thing in itself. But these are simply tools, and we need to focus on the outcome. Why are we doing what we're doing? And ultimately, why we're doing what we're doing is to make people's lives better, to create the conditions in which people can live and exist in an easier way, in a way where their lives are not impacted by a lot of external issues that make it harder to exist, to be happy, to be content, where we can live in a society that makes people feel good, for lack of a better phrase, because we get along and there's as little stress as possible. And so digital transformation, or the implementation of digital solutions, can make the interaction with the state and with businesses much easier. So for example, if we have a single unique identification system, when you have to interact with the state, you don't need copies of this document, copies of your passport, copies of your birth paper, etc. If that solution is implemented properly, you can interact with the state using your digital pass, and that can be done in different ways. And if you don't have the technology, because the easiest way to dismiss this is people say, well, not everyone has a smartphone. That's true. So what you can do is that digital identity resides on the cloud or on the internet, and you can print stuff, you can still bring things. It is not an either or necessarily, but it is a way of making things much easier. So if we had a vaccine passport on a digital vaccine passport, for example, if the government does implement safe zones, it makes it much easier to operationalize that. Now, the issue is, of course, you have to have the entire process and people all aligned and everything in place. So you need the data input to be able to create, for example, a vaccine passport, and you need the people to manage that system accordingly. So this is why we focus on digital transformation to such a great extent in our budget submission this year and last year.
Yeah, one of the important things, though, I remember when I spoke to the minister, he talked about digital government. And I raised the issue of digital economy also. And it seems to me AMCHAM's focus is on a collaborative relationship with government and business, so that you not only get government right, which will help business, but you get a collaborative relationship between government and business that will help the entire economy and system and make things easier for people to engage, not just business, ordinary people. Are you all talking to the minister? Is he responsive? And is there collaboration between government and business on this matter?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we had a very productive, we thought, meeting with the Minister of Digital Transformation last week. And we are going to find more and more ways to collaborate. We're discussing one specific big impact but small thing that we can do to show how business can assist. And we expect that as the minister gets resources, because we do understand that this is a new ministry that doesn't have all the resources, human and otherwise. But as the minister gets resources and working with the public servants, the PS in the ministry is an experienced permanent secretary who has interacted with us on our digital agenda before, Mr. McKellar. We expect that we will be able to collaborate even more. And more than that is we are in discussions and already in the early stages of collaboration with the TTIFC and InvestTT, because our goal is to build a tech hub. So there's digital transformation that is required for things that we want to do in Trinidad and Tobago. But then, so that's tech as an enabler. But then there's tech as an industry. And we want to build a tech industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And so we're working on both of those things simultaneously. And we recognize that we cannot do it alone. It has to be collaborative, and that's the approach that we're taking.
From your sense, does the government understand the importance of a tech hub as part of a competitive intervention?
Well, I think the government is looking for industries that will contribute to the GDP outside of oil and gas, and conceptually, I think the government does. I think that we're still not philosophically geared toward government managing, putting in place and regulating and getting out of the way. I think that, and this is not at the level of the cabinet only, I think it's also fairly pervasive throughout the public service.
Yeah.
And I think that, we have to find ways to create that trust and build respect so that the private sector is not talking at the public service, and the public service doesn't feel like they have to constantly control a private sector that they don't trust or they don't think will act in national interest. So it's a process.
Do you think that if we do not quicken the pace of digitalization, we're really contributing to our own national competitive loss in the business sector?
It's not what I think, it's what's happening. So if we look at what's happening around the world and the way that competitiveness is being measured, and the countries that are open for business and doing business well, if we look at Jamaica, if we look at Barbados, right here in the English-speaking Caribbean, because people don't like to compare to other economies, but if we look at Panama, Costa Rica, Uruguay, countries of roughly our size 40 years ago, they are moving much further ahead, and a lot of it has to do with how they have transformed significant parts of their services to allow for the implementation of digital solutions. Okay. So yes.
I just want to underscore that point, that slow movement in the area of digitalization and digital transformation undermines a country's business competitiveness in the world. I just want to underscore that. Now, recently we had a problem with ease of doing business. And I'll just kind of frame it for you. Ease of doing business has been something that the business community here has been advocating for, because we are so low down. Based on the last ratings, we are about 105, very low down in the system. And the government has been pressing to get, the business community has been pressing, all of them, to get government to do things like that. We've had a problem, though, where the World Bank compromised itself because of certain employees, and they have squashed the ease of business measurement formula and system that they had. Does that affect the ease of doing business issues that need to be addressed in Trinidad and Tobago to help business competitiveness? And I wonder if you could mention 2 or 3 things that need to be done in that business competitiveness area.
Yeah. So I think it does the opposite. I think the issues around the World Bank and the ease of doing business report index just highlight how much the global system impacts us in areas where we have little or no control. So the issues around the index, as I understand it from what I'm reading in the press, largely center around China and how China's growth and competitiveness were measured, and the pressure to make China look a little better than maybe it actually make its performance look a little better than it actually was.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that anybody who's done business in Trinidad and Tobago consistently over the last 20 years or so will say that it is more difficult to do business now than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so our ease of doing business is getting more difficult. It is getting more difficult to do business in Trinidad and Tobago now and in recent times than it was in the past. A big part of that has to do with expectation and digitization that we have not implemented. A big part of it has to do with political impasse and the lack of collaboration at the legislative level between the government and opposition, and that was flipped. So it's nobody's fault singularly, but it's everybody's fault collectively. And the lack of engagement around what we should focus on, and then the commitment to see things through. So that if we say we're going to work on X, let's work on X, see it through, get to the outcome we want, as opposed to saying we simply passed a law or implemented a policy without seeing if it has been actually executed and implemented in a fundamental way. So that to me is the framework. In terms of what can we focus on, we absolutely have to focus on customs. We feel strongly that we have to get the National Statistical Institute up and running so that we can have better, more timely data available to everyone. Of course, digitization writ large across the government, but you asked for specific. So focusing on making customs and trade facilitation more efficient, focusing on the National Statistical Institute, and then the framework. We have in our budget proposal a National Accountability Council, which is akin to Jamaica's EPOC. I think it's Economic Policy Oversight Committee, where they set national targets, and this committee of private sector, public sector, and the unions would publish reports and go and speak publicly in communities around the progress and report on the progress of the national targets. So if we don't set targets, we don't know if we're achieving anything. We don't know if we are getting to where we want to go to. So we think that's really, really important because there isn't the kinds of reporting on progress in the state sector that to the level that we think
That we need,
is
yes.
that we need. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just want to say, as you talk there, yes, the customs issues are important and the other issues are important. The statistics are absolutely. One thing COVID has shown is that you need statistics that are accurate. Secondly, you need them timely. And more than that, the trusted statistics are at a premium. I mean, they have increased in value because of the age of misinformation. So I do think those things are critical. But the other point I'd like to reinforce is this thing of digitalization and the digital economy and the collaboration on this matter between government and business. If we don't get that right, we're really selling ourselves short in the world competitive system on trade, investment, development, everything. Now, I talked before about the fact that AMCHAM has really made some nationally valuable proposals, and I want to go to some of them, and if you can deal with them quickly for me. The first thing is that you've made a proposal for a national recovery fund with an independent board to mobilize private capital. Explain to the person who is listening or watching, how would that work and what would be the value of it?
All right. So let me start with a disclaimer. We think this is a great idea, but I'm not a financial I'm not a financial wizard. So we would need some refinement and structuring. But conceptually, what it would be is that we are in a situation where, as a country, our debt to GDP ratio is very high, meaning we've borrowed a lot of money over time, and the cost of carrying that debt, repaying the interest, and carrying the debt is quite high. So
about 20%.
We are thinking that the government can mobilize. We also have a significant amount of liquid assets in the financial system, in banks and so on. Billions of dollars. And we need money to do things to transform the economy, infrastructure things, process things, and the like. If the government is willing, they can set up this fund in such a way that citizens can put forward small amounts to large amounts, and they can set their caps. Not unlike the art and culture or the sport tax allowance, where instead of lending the money or buying government debt, government bonds, what they do is they put money in this fund and it is offset against future taxation. And you can work out what that payback period is, whether it is 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, etc. And so while the government will take a hit on taxation, down the road, it's not dissimilar to having to pay interest on money you borrow now, because they will have the money now. Now, why we suggest an independent board is what you want that money to do, because you're offsetting it against government revenue in the future. You want that money to be invested in things that will yield production and therefore add business activity, add economic activity that will ultimately generate more taxes, more jobs, and the like. And so that's why we say an independent board to assess what projects this money can be used to fund. And so in a nutshell, I don't know if that's simple enough, but in a nutshell, that's
I think the principles are important, which is to, so basically what we are doing is taking private sector money, making it available to government now, having an independent board which basically kind of assesses and vets the projects for value and impact. And when you put your money in, you get a tax break, so to speak. in the system. So in a way, everybody wins. Government doesn't have to borrow. They get the money. Private sector gets a break. And we get good projects that then yields higher taxes or more taxes anyway for the government in terms of new business creation, etc. So I think that's pretty clear. The principle is clear.
Yeah, and so just for clarity, so we're not talking about private sector projects. These are all government projects. So government would be responsible for bringing the projects to the board or to the institution, however it's managed.
For financing.
And so it's not like we're trying to mobilize private money for private sector projects. We can do that already. We don't need another fund to do that, right? Private people can go to the banks or various institutions and mobilize money.
Now, another proposal that you make, we have a high debt, nearly 90% now. We have a high repayment of debt every year, is about 20% of our expenditure. And what you are saying is that the time has come in this COVID period to refinance both the sovereign debt and the state enterprise debt. Why are you saying that? What room will it give the government?
Well, I mean, so we don't pay all our debt at the same time. So think of it like your mortgage on your house or your car. If you can get a lower interest rate, you'll have lower monthly payments. And if you have, let's say you have a lot of credit card debt, which is high interest debt, which you had to take for whatever reason at that point in time, but you can pay off your credit card debt because you can get another source of financing and you pay a lower interest rate on that. So if your credit card debt is $10,000 and you're paying 22% a year, and you can get the $10,000 from the credit union and pay 6% or 8%, then you're in a better position. So I think the government has done some of this over the last couple of years. And if they look at this holistically and see what they might be able to consolidate and what they might want to refinance based on when they took the loans, it might yield us some fiscal space. So instead of paying however much we pay in debt repayments, whether it's $8 billion a year or whatever, if we can reduce that, for argument's sake, from 8 to 7, that gives us an extra $1 billion that we don't have to spend in a given year.
Okay. Quite frankly, I think given what is happening, I mean, I don't know if you look at the news this morning or last night, but I mean, one of the things the United States is caught up with now is that it may have to raise its debt ceiling, and there's no guarantee that the Congress and the Senate is going to do that. And it has this tremendous budget, and there are trillions of dollars that have been put in the system through COVID. And the IMF is quite sanguine that, you know, I mean, countries have particular problems. I would think that at least from your point of view, the time is right to talk about something like this that would give us headroom, so to speak, and give us fiscal space in terms of available funds for development projects in Trinidad and Tobago. You want to say anything about that, or is that all right?
Well, I mean, yeah, we are expected to continue to run budget deficits for the next few years at least, and which would mean that our debt to GDP ratio goes up. As our debt to GDP ratio goes up, unless we start addressing the denominator, which is the GDP, and increasing our GDP, the cost of borrowing will go up. So the quicker we can do this in a generally low interest rate environment, we should do it. And it will give us, as we said, a little more room because we wouldn't have to put out as much, in theory, on interest payments.
You make proposals to amend the regulations to allow private sector to invest in things like venture capital funding and equity arrangements, equity funds, etc. Why do you propose that? Why do you think that such a thing is valuable?
Yeah, so this is not a new idea. You'd remember in the 90s, no doubt, that the government had even launched a venture capital incentive program and the like, understanding that, people knock the banks, and we can all talk about experiences that we've had maybe with individual banks and the like, but none of us would like to know that we get up in the morning and a bank has closed because they got involved in a set of risky investments with our money that we are using for stability and to pay bills month to month. So the banks have a role in the financial system, but there is a whole space within there, and small businesses in particular, but not just small businesses, medium-sized, larger businesses that want to grow will tell you sometimes you need a different type of capital to grow. You need capital that is less risk averse because it's not raised in the same way and for the same purpose. So people who are willing to invest, and in your investment portfolio, you have your safer assets, you have your higher risk assets. People who are willing to invest, institutions that are willing to invest, we need the capital in the middle, so to speak, between the banks and what you can raise on your own and from friends and family, to allow for innovative ideas, proven and unproven, and businesses that are in a growth trajectory but may not yet have all of the cash flow and financials to secure bank loans, or who may already be leveraged to some extent to be able to grow. And that's why we think that doing more to incentivize private equity and venture capital would help with the growth of the economy and the growth of businesses as they look outward in particular.
I don't know how much the Minister of Finance and the government would listen to what you're saying, but I would like to point out, based on what you have said so far, that a lot of your proposals, in a time when government is involved in continuous deficit spending, and when we are heavily overborrowed, a lot of your proposals are really to bring private sector money to the public good, with the risk shifted away from government to the private sector. And I mean, I must say, as a private sector institutions, I think that is very commendable. And I really hope at least they take a look at it seriously. So I think you have some good proposals there. Let's see what happens. I want to give a quote from your document because it has to do with the wider society. And in your 15-page document to government, you say, it is important that our country's economic recovery plan has clear objectives related to the improvement of quality of life and social harmony as prerequisite to a more attractive business environment. Explain what is the thinking behind that thought, and what is the worry, and what is the significance of a statement like that coming from the business sector. And many of our companies are big business, some of them are medium businesses, but all of them are involved in international business.
Yeah. I mean, so I think, over many years, businesses or business generally it's easy to say business doesn't care, business is only in it for themselves. And I think during the pandemic in particular, people saw businesses trying very, very hard to reduce the impact, minimize the impact, lessen the impact on their employees and those employees who would be most affected. It started with things like salary adjustments, where the salary adjustments didn't affect people under a certain income level in the organization. And we really believe that the economy cannot flourish in a sustainable manner. You can have one-off like GDP growth and the like, but the society, the economy cannot flourish unless people who live in the economy, who live in the society, can live a comfortable life. And if you have a situation where some people are doing well, but many people are not, the society can't do well, and the economy will not do well.
Yeah.
And so what is happening and what the data is showing, the Express had a story over the weekend, I think it was, showing that according to the available data, which is imperfect, people in the upper middle class, upper class, and so on have felt the effects of the pandemic to a lesser extent than people in the middle class, lower middle class, and lower classes, lower income earners. And we have to find a way to address that. And the way to address it is not only through grants. The grants must be seen as a temporary tool. Some level of direct transfer is required, no doubt. But we have to find ways to create opportunity to move beyond the grant, because what is happening is our labor force participation rate is falling, meaning less and less people are seeing it worthwhile to go and look for work or go and work, because for whatever reason, either the work isn't paying well enough, or it may be more financially beneficial to live off of what is available. So we have to create the conditions for meritocracy. We have to create the conditions for opportunity in a much more targeted and sustained way.
All right, I have a few seconds now before we go to the news, so you have to give a quick response. This is a budget, given that background that you've painted and given the reality of COVID, that has to be significantly different, would you say? I mean, the focus has to be developmental in nature, and it has to be prosperity-oriented in nature, notwithstanding our difficulties and our problems. You say?
I would say yes, and the but is that it doesn't matter what is written; it matters what is done and how it's done.
Yes.
What is done and how it is done. So it has to be, whatever happens in the budget statement, there must be meaningful collaboration after and a commitment to execution.
All right, well, let's do something. Let's do something together, and let's do something meaningful. Thank you very much, Nirad, for this conversation this morning on behalf of AMCHAM, and we hope the government takes some of your ideas seriously. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tewarie. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We were talking to the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the American Chamber of Commerce, on his proposals to the government in preparation for the budget. This is his proposals on behalf of AMCHAM, which is a collective body of businesses in Trinidad and Tobago, and which has a broad-based board of collaborating business organizations involved in international business. We move on now to Chanel Al-Suran and the 7 o'clock news.